Predator, Killer of Killers is a 2025 American animated film directed by Dan Trachtenberg. The plot details the long-running practice of Yautja? Man, I still can't say that word. Yautja warriors scouring the earth for the strongest human warriors to fight to the death. Well, it's certainly been an interesting time to be a Predator fan and an Alien fan as well, I guess, while we're at it. And we owe a lot, in my opinion, we owe a lot of that to Dan Trachtenberg, right? Just a couple of years ago, he brought us Prey, arguably the best film in the Predator franchise in decades. I know that's not saying a lot, but it's something, But recently he gave us a Predator Badlands, which I liked even more, to be honest. I liked it more than Prey, but between the two of those, he gave us this animated film called Killer of Killers. And I had been curious about this, albeit maybe a little bit hesitant. I am a huge Predator fan, as I've said in the past, but I wasn't really in a rush to check out an animated film. I just for some reason wasn't. That said, of course, people have been raving about it, and I enjoyed Badlands so much, I just had to finally check it out. I could no longer ignore it, I guess. And I liked it. I really did. More than I expected in spots, and less than I would want to in others. I have some complaints, but they are more due to probably personal preference, I would think. So it's a 4-part anthology with each part taking place in a different time period and different part of the world. Now, it couldn't be more clear to me why this movie would be made, because I've said in the past, I've talked about some movies or some scripts pretty much just write themselves. I mean, these are all things that the Predator fans have been asking for I don't know. I don't even know how long, decades probably. And I'll admit, I wanted these things too. I just not really in animated form. I know a lot of people have said that, and count me among them. Not that I'm against animation either. I like a lot of animated films. I just when they're done right, I don't know. I guess it's not just what I wanted necessarily for the Predator franchise. And going into the animation itself, the animation's good. It's super good. But my first thoughts were, I just kind of felt like I wasn't a huge fan of the animation style for a Predator movie. So again, I think it's just a personal preference type thing. Look, I'm a bit of an older gentleman, I guess you could say. I grew up with different animation styles. I like that hand-drawn shit. And to be fair, that goes for all kinds of artwork that I enjoy. Comic books, album covers, all that. No offense to digital artists, but I'm just never going to be really into it, I don't think. So, anyways, the first segment is called The Shield, set in Scandinavia, circa 841. So this is this is the oldest story that we get, and you've got Ursa, a Viking warrior, as our main character here, and along with her is her son Anders and their clan. Her only purpose in life, basically, as far as she's concerned, is to avenge her father's death by killing the clan leader who murdered him. Ursa's a very fierce warrior, and in true Viking fashion, she eviscerates and decapitates her way through enemy hordes. While this is happening, a Yautja warrior is watching. And as you might expect, due to the time period and location, the segment is definitely based around, Viking culture, loss, revenge. And it's by far the most brutal and violent of this entire movie. The next segment is called The Sword, set in 1609 feudal Japan. This segment was definitely my favorite, and by far, and it's not even close. It combines my love for samurai films and what I love about them, and with a Predator story, and it's all really well done. And this one is about two rival brothers who are sons of a samurai warlord coming together to take on the Yautja. The action and stuff was awesome, but I also think that the best writing of the entire movie is right here in this segment. It's got twists, it's got a ton of heart, and it's just really cool. Unfortunately, it's also where my enjoyment of this movie completely peaked. The third and final segment of the three human character stories is called The Bullet, which takes place in the U.S. this time, the year 1942. And it's about a fighter pilot this time around who ends up in a dogfight with a Yacha ship, which is a cool idea, even if it didn't really interest me personally. I will give it credit though because it's something completely new, in the Predator franchise movies. I don't know if it's been done in comics. I never did read the comics, so I can't say if these ideas haven't ever been done. But anyways, let's get back to it. Anyways, I appreciated it for the variety, and as far as I'm concerned, some new aspects. Now for the wraparound, titled "The Battle," which I wasn't a big fan of either. I liked aspects of it, but overall, not a huge fan. The human characters from each segment here were placed in suspended animation. And my first response to this, was that it was maybe a bit too far-fetched for me, although this is sci-fi, and, since when did we have such strict rules? So anyways, they're all taken back to what I assume is the Yacha planet. I don't think it's really specifies, but anyways, they have to, fight each other to the death, with the winner fighting the Yacha king, which, this actually makes sense to me. Something I would think that they would do, at least. On paper, I think it sounds awesome. But the way it panned out, it didn't really interest me that much. It felt a bit too like Star Wars, and that's just not what I want from the franchise. Now I was pretty pleased with how this wasn't all just packed full of Easter eggs and stuff like that, which I kind of expected, to be honest. That said, there are a few. The most noticeable one for me, I don't quite know how to feel about, to be honest, which is the pistol, the infamous pistol from Predator 2. Seeing it again in Prey was actually super cool to me, and it made sense, but here it just kind of seemed a little lazy. That's how I felt about it. To me, it was just used for the sake of using it again, and I just thought it was a misstep, but whatever. It really isn't a huge deal. There are some huge Easter eggs in the end scene, too, by the way, and I absolutely won't spoil that, but it definitely looks like more, tie-ins, to the other Predator films will likely happen in the future. Which is very cool. I'm all for it. Not necessarily in animated form, but I'll take what I can get also. So I guess my final overall opinion is that I did like this, but I think that it's slightly overrated. The sword could have been a movie by itself. It's that's where the best writing here was, in my opinion. It had violence and gore, but it also had a ton of heart. Not to mention some super solid writing. And I also liked how each Yacha character looks completely different from each other. Different gear, different weapons. That was such a cool touch. That is definitely something I'd want to see. I can't help but imagine, how much cooler, though, they would have looked in live action form, but I digress. The shield was cool, but, it was like a somewhat generic Viking revenge story with a Yacha just kind of showing up. But it's solid. The bullet in the battle, was mostly where things lost me. They were just a bit too cartoony, for where I would like things to go. I know I talked about things kind of going in that direction in Predator Badlands as well, but I think in Badlands it was pulled off a little bit better than it was here. So I'm going to give Predator Killer of Killers a 6.5 out of 10. I had fun with this, and I'm trying to stay open-minded with the directions that this franchise is kind of going in. It hasn't mostly been what I've expected, and in some cases, not really what I wanted either. But it seems to so far be working, and I want it to continue. Even as a somewhat older fan, I can say that if you give it a shot, these last 3 Predator movies are pretty damn good. The franchise is in better hands than it's been in for ages, and I'm just happy, seeing it move forward and in a positive direction for once. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you at the multiplex. Subscribe right now, please.